to suppress the story of their one-nighter from 2006, which was the same year, or which was 1 year after, Donald Trump made those infamous comments in the Access Hollywood tape, which was then leaked in 2016. But he actually made the comments on the Access Hollywood tape, the grab him by the P word comments. Those comments were made in September of 2005 as he's chatting with Billy Bush, George W.'s nephew. Now, this is where I remind you that Trump was friends with the Clintons, and they both attended, and both Clintons, Hillary and Bill, attended his wedding to Melania. There are photos of it. Bill Clinton and Trump also shared some level of relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, with Clinton flying on the Epstein plane more than once, allegedly. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in Florida for the first time in 2008. And all these emails are kind of happening around that time. Isn't that weird? Now, fast forward to today. There are a bunch of rumors out that Nancy Mace, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, is going to take her name off of the discharge petition to make Adelita Grijalva's signature irrelevant. And she wouldn't then be the 218th vote. That's just a rumor that's going around, which means that there's a ton of pressure being applied and placed on all four of the Republicans who are on that discharge petition, meaning the petition that would go around Speaker Johnson's strange and suspicious refusal to promote the release of the Epstein files. This while the Republicans have put, there's a website, you can just go to it, I'll put a link to it, where you can go and you can just scroll through the 23,000 emails they put out because they were responding to the Democrats putting out these emails that are definitely incriminating toward Trump because they show he's lying when he says he didn't know what was going on. At least it doesn't seem like it. Thomas Massie, Mace, Lauren Boebert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene right now are on that petition. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But what's very clear is that Donald Trump really doesn't want those files released under any circumstances. In fact, word is he's considering commuting the sentence or even pardoning pedophile sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell to shut her up, like the Bill Barr-run federal penitentiary got Epstein silenced one way or another. Let me show you a tweet from somebody who does know Donald Trump. His name is Lev Parnas, who used to raise a lot of money for Trump in Florida. He's a Ukrainian origin guy who's, Lev and Igor, remember them? They used to raise a lot of money for Trump, and who back in the day helped him set up Joe Biden and his family as criminals doing dirty stuff with Ukraine before he saw the light and turned on the gangster president. Here is his tweet. It says, my sources say Trump went ballistic, blowing up phones and leaning on GOP allies to keep Democrats from aiming to block any move to release the Epstein files. Stay tuned. From hitting 218, meaning 218 votes, aiming to block any move to release the Epstein files. Stay tuned. More to come. Well, more to come right now because Lev Parnas joins me now. Lev Parnas, great to talk to you. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Joy. Good to see you again. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you. Better than Donald Trump because it seems
yes.
wearing his diaper worrying about these Epstein files released. If to your knowledge, these emails seem to suggest Donald Trump was lying when he claimed not to really know what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. Do you think Donald Trump knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing?
Oh, 100%. We've been speaking about, and that's one of the things I've been breaking on my Substack for the past several months. I'll never forget that July 4th, 5th weekend when they tried to hide this whole thing, when they came out with the memo and a lot of the media was talking about like, this is a nothing burger. And I'm glad that you and others stayed on this because this is Donald Trump's kryptonite. Donald Trump's all over this. And now it's starting to come out. And you could see a lot of my sources I have on the inside that are telling me that he pushed so hard on Lauren Boebert, but he couldn't. It looks like Lauren Boebert didn't budge, but it looks like Nancy Mace is where they're going to put the pressure on. So we got to look out, stay tuned for that. Nancy Mace, watch what she does. And that
she is a sexual assault survivor herself, right? Who wept when she met with the victims. But she's also a crass political operative who will do anything to become, I think she wants to become governor. So is that what they're going to basically dangle in front of her? Or do you think they're threatening her?
I think there's a lot with her. I think she's also going through some things. Lately, she's been acting very radical with, what happened at the airport, her going after saying she's been raped and attacked by her ex-boyfriend, who's now coming out and saying that's all false. And so knowing the beast that we're dealing with. There's a lot of things and a lot of pressure that they're going to be putting on her. But I'm hearing other things also besides the pressure they're putting on her, because remember, once they get the 218, then it has to go to the Congress, and that's another set of things where Johnson is already putting in the motion and putting in place to try to be able to block or do whatever they can to make sure that it doesn't come out.
Donald Trump, this is some of the things he said about Donald Trump. He used to say, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy, Trump told New York Magazine in 2002. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. In 1992, George Horani, a Florida-based businessman, had organized a calendar girl competition at Mar-a-Lago, and they arranged for a bunch of these contestants to fly in. They go to Mar-a-Lago for a party. It turns out the party was not a bunch of VIPs. It was literally just Trump and Epstein. Let me show you a video. This is B9, Jason. This is a party that was shown from a 1992 party where you can actually see Trump and Epstein partying together, looking at women, talking about which women are hot. This is a 1992 party at Mar-a-Lago. 1993, Stacey Williams, then a professional model, visits Trump and Trump Tower with Epstein. On arrival, she would later tell The Guardian, Trump put his hands all over my all over my breast, waist, and buttocks, while Trump and Epstein smiled at each other in what she believed was a twisted game between the two. And then, of course, there's that birthday book that Donald Trump contributed to back in 2003, a year after this party. In your experience, back when you were a donor to Trump, was Jeffrey Epstein a part of Donald Trump's circle and life, and for how long?
Well, I when I was around Donald Trump, I wish I would have known something about Epstein so I could be divulging it. But at those times, I had nothing to do. I was put towards the Ukraine stuff, Venezuela stuff. So I really didn't have any knowledge of what was going on with Epstein. But I could tell you, I hope you saw my documentary by the great Rachel Maddow. So,
Right.
my life was a little bit where I was intertwined with a lot of these oligarchs, a lot of these people in the 90s, and mine and Trump's world collided a lot of times. There's a reason why Trump had the Miss Universe pageant, Miss Teen pageants, and back then the competition. But the one thing I do want to mention is right before I came on, you were reading some of these emails, and some of these emails are extremely damaging. And if we break them down a little bit, like the first one of them that you said, where Donald Trump was in for several hours with name redacted victim. We know that victim now is Virginia Giuffre because Caroline Levitt mentioned her. This opened her up in her press conference. She mentioned that's what the victim is. So now we know that Donald Trump lied for a fact, because Donald Trump for the past several months has been coming out saying he's never been to Epstein Island. He specifically said Epstein Island. Now we know he has been in Epstein's house. He was in Epstein's house for several hours with a minor. Now, we also know Virginia Giuffre has mentioned several times that at that time she was drugged. They were giving a different type of drug, so she doesn't remember everything, because now they're trying to use that motto. Oh, she never claimed that Donald Trump did anything. She never claimed a lot of people did anything, because a lot of those times she was drugged up and doesn't even remember. And she mentioned that and said that plenty of times. But the fact that they're not disagreeing. Carolyn Levitt didn't say he wasn't in the house. He didn't say that he wasn't with it. He said that the way she responded was specifically saying that Virginia never said that Donald Trump did anything bad. But the fact that he's there with an underage girl, with Jeffrey Epstein, for hours in his house, what are they doing? The next thing is Epstein is concerned. Why is Epstein concerned? Because he's saying, wait a second, I'm being prosecuted. In his email to Maxwell, he's saying they're going after me for this minor. Meanwhile, Trump is sitting there and he's not being looked at all, and that's why a lot of people were talking about that Trump might have been giving information about Epstein. But then if you take a look at that, you only give information to save your own butt. So then if he's giving information, that means he was doing it to protect himself. The next thing that you got to look at.
But I want to, before you send an email, I want to play a piece of video that backs up what you just said. This is B10, Jason. This is Donald Trump specifically talking about the late Virginia Giuffre. I want you all to recall that she ended her own life over a year ago. But she did write a book in which she disclosed a lot of all the things that happened to her, naming Prince Andrew, who's now lost his royal titles because of it. and she talks about the things that she went through. No, she did not name Donald Trump specifically, but to Lev's point, she was clearly known to Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, was being abused and raped repeatedly by Jeffrey Epstein and passed around to his friends slash clients. Here's B10 Trump talking about Virginia Giuffre.
Has a certain reputation, obviously. Just curious, were some of the workers that were taken from you, were some of them young women?
With some of them.
Were some of them young women?
Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken, and it was the concept of taking people that work for me is bad, but that story's been pretty well out there, and the answer is yes, they were.
Yes, they were young
Yeah.
women. What did they do?
In the
Like,
spa.
what kind of jobs? In the spa.
Yeah, it's people that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-a-Lago, and people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Giuffre?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know, none whatsoever.
He stole her. It seems unusual to me, to your point that you were making, Lev, that when I was 15, I wanted to get a job working at McDonald's. I wanted to make money. No one would hire me because I was 15.
Right.
Who hires a 15-year-old girl to do massages at a spa? That doesn't even make sense.
And the other crazy part is he said she wasn't the only one. He said he stole plenty. And then
Right.
finally when he stole, so there was more. There was others that we don't know about that were stolen. And then in the email, you also hear him telling Maxwell that he told Maxwell to stop doing it.
To stop,
So
right. But also, stolen is a weird way to talk
very,
about
very weird.
an employee or a girl, a child. This is a child.
It's a human being. Let's start. I mean, how can you? It's like, possession. It was his possession that was stolen. That's how Donald Trump views it. That Virginia Giuffre and all of these employees are his possession, and Epstein was stealing them. But this is the other interesting and very disturbing part. That if that is the case, if you even want to take that disgusting version of what Donald Trump said, what was he doing in Epstein's house with her then afterwards, for hours?
Right.
So it still begs the difference. The other thing that Joy, which should be happening right this second, is right now Maxwell should be remanded and being sent into a maximum security prison. Right now there should be a outcry and a port to have Blanche to be pulled out in front of Congress in open, not behind closed doors, but in an open session to respond what the hell is going on and why is she there? And we have right now black and white. She's lied. I mean, you have her on tape that they released. These idiots released the tapes themselves of her saying how Donald Trump has never been in a place with a minor. Donald Trump's never been around Jeffrey Epstein. How she's never seen even Jeffrey Epstein do anything wrong. And now she's sitting with a puppy getting Uber delivered to her thing while, we're seeing this play out. What else I'm hearing from my sources is she's not sitting tight either, Joy. Her attorney, Marcus, is putting tremendous pressure now on Trump to get not only a commutation, but a pardon quickly. Because part of how this whole thing started, if you remember, was the Wall Street Journal release of that infamous birthday. That was Maxwell doing it, sending a message. That the other thing you got to keep in mind, my sources, I've been working this really hard, is there's a reason why Prince Andrew 2 weeks ago they got their strips. Her family's from London. I mean, they're very well connected to the monarchy. She was very good friends with Prince Andrew, and they were given a heads up that information is starting to come up. Because remember, this information that we're seeing is not from the DOJ. This is from personal, the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. So she knows more than anybody what's in those, because those are emails are between her and him. The other very important thing in these email, I think that is extremely disturbing to me, is the email between Michael Wolff and Epstein. It's so crazy, but literally last night and today in the morning, I was reaching out to Michael Wolff because he wanted to come on and do a Substack live with me
Mhm.
after I approached him on one of the shows. And today, all day, obviously today, but last night and today in the morning, he hasn't been responding. I spoke to Wajahid Ali, by the way. He says, best regards, sends you, love him.
Thank you.
We just did a show, and Waj also, Michael Wolff hasn't responded. Another couple of interviewers, Michael Wolff hasn't responded. That email is very troublesome because it's not an email from Epstein to Wolff. It's Wolff basically telling Epstein of how to go blackmail or go take
Yes,
the next president of the United States.
that's right.
And he's had all this information. He has these emails. He talks about on all these shows how he has all these audio recordings, but he also has all these emails that he's been keeping. Now, a lot of people could come around and say, listen, a lot of reporters do this. Look at, Maggie Haberman and others that, report and then write a book about it. And that's fair to say. I always think, it's a fine line when a reporter should report or save it for but this is different. He's not just reporting it, he's actually telling him, advising him of how to use certain information to have leverage over the next president of the United States and how he could use it for political purposes. And if we take it a step further, what happens 3 years later?
Correct.
He gets arrested by Donald Trump's
That's
Bill
right.
Barr, and then he disappears. So
You're going where exactly I wanted to go, Lev, because I didn't read them in exactly the same the date order, but if I reverse them and put them in order, in 2011, he's emailing with Ghislaine Maxwell saying that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. He says he mentions police chief, etc., and says I'm 75% there. This is 2011. This is after he's already served time in Florida and he's back on the loose again. You fast forward 3 years, or you fast forward 4 years, so we're at 2015. And this is where Michael Wolff is advising. I can only, as you have sort of interpret it as saying, yeah, my advice would be you can hang him with the information that you have that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, meaning leverage over the potential next president of the United States. Then Trump actually gets elected after surviving the scandal that's literally about the way that he talks about and treats women, in which he's throwing Bill Clinton, his former friend and fellow Democrat at the time, who went to his wedding, and he's now throwing that guy's wife under the bus with accusations of what? Sexual predation. And
Yep.
then he becomes president. Now Jeffrey Epstein is indicted not by Barack Obama's Justice Department, but by his own. And he's not only prosecuted by his own Justice Department, but the guy in charge of the Justice Department is the guy whose father hired Jeffrey Epstein at that school where he was a math teacher before he suddenly becomes like the world's top investment manager for no reason and gets huge clients, including the guy who owns Victoria's Secret.
Yep.
And then that guy gives him a house for free almost. All of this stuff is weird. Then he ends up dead. This is after he's been advised to use this leverage against Trump. Trump gets to be president and he gets dead. It's just weird.
And it gets even weirder because I'll give you some other information. So, first of all, I spent time in solitary confinement. I went to prison for Donald Trump. I stayed in exactly the same, not his cell, but a cell like that. And I could tell you for a fact, things that transpired doesn't have, it's almost impossible to hang yourself in that. That's why the conditions are made to be that you don't have all of those sheets. You're not, I mean, you would have to figure it out. Second of all, a lot of people don't know, but I'm going to be also, I'm trying to find him right now. But one of the individuals I served prison time with in Otisville Penitentiary happened to be serving time and was doing the cleanup right after in Brooklyn Metropolitan, right after he cleaning up the cell after Epstein. Literally within 24 hours, he got transferred to a camp when he was supposed to go to a medium security prison. He was doing a 10-year bid for drug possession. He got transferred to a federal camp where I was, Otisville, and got a cushy job. He also, and as we became friends, he started telling me a lot of weird things were going on, like in the jail cell that night when Epstein passed away. And he told me for a fact, he said, Lev, he did not kill himself. This was all prepared and planned and what is happening. So I'm trying to find him right now if he got where he is to bring him on, because
Hey,
this,
come back on with them. If you find
yeah,
him, come back and
definitely,
bring him with you. I
definitely,
mean, absolutely. Because
definitely.
the two security guards, the two black security guards get blamed. One of them is now working, I believe, in security at a hospital. They were thrown out of their jobs. But then the lie gets busted because Pam Bondi, who again was the Florida Attorney General. She's not the one who cut the sweet deal with Jeffrey Epstein, but she's serving after Jeffrey Epstein is back on the lam, back on the loose, free to prey on young girls and kids. And he would normally go in trailer parks, find girls who were poor. Okay, he would prey on the poor. And she's now Attorney General, and he's free to operate with her there. She then is getting all this money, $100,000 a month from Qatar, as like one of their, flacks in the United States. So she's able to get rich. And then when Donald Trump needs to swap out Matt Gaetz, who was accused of sexual predation,
Correct.
he swaps her in. And now
Well-
she's the Attorney General, who all she does is go after people Trump hates, like a mob boss or a mob mall. This whole regime operates like the mafia, Lev.
Joy, I know them very well. Remember Brian Ballard, where she came from and Susie Wiles came from, was I'm the one that brought him to Washington, D.C. He was he was a Florida, he was a Florida lobbyist until he met me, and I introduced him to President Erdogan, introduced into Ukraine, and made him the powerhouse. And that's how they got Qatar and Susie Wiles all over there. I know them all very well. But before it was even Pam Bondi, there was even somebody more important that keeps slipping that we need. It was Acosta, because if you take a look at the email that he sent them and what transpired is,
that's the U.S. attorney. For those who don't remember all the names, this was the guy who was the U.S. attorney. Please go on.
Yeah, he was a U.S. attorney for Florida and then became the labor secretary for Trump in his first administration. But the way things play out is Acosta's the prosecutor. He prosecutes Epstein. Trump gets away with not get mentioned anywhere. Epstein gets a sweet deal, and then Trump gives him a position as the labor secretary. And then as soon as in 2019 Epstein gets arrested, Alex Acosta quietly resigns and walks away and into the sunlight. I mean, moonlight. So this is and then right now, that's another thing. If you take a look at some of the Democrats, I didn't see all of them. I didn't get a chance. I've been doing lives all day, but it looks like he's perjured himself in his testimony that he's just given in front of the House committee. So that's another thing. So again, this is just the tip of the iceberg, Joy.
It is. Exit question to you, Lav. Thank you for staying a little bit longer. Donald Trump is now effectively getting every billionaire in the country that is even slightly right wing, or even some whom I don't even know what their ideologies are, to fork over money. I mean, everyone's paying him. All these billionaires are paying him. And is there any? Do you think that there is any connection?
You want to say quid pro quo?
Correct. I mean, look, what Jeffrey Epstein did is he was a billionaire, and he trafficked among other billionaires. His clients were billionaires. There were a couple of these billionaires who were with Trump who were literally in emails, potentially planning trips to Epstein Island. That reporting has come out as well. Is part of what this is people that were involved with Epstein protecting each other? Is that some of what we're seeing here? Money passing around between
absolutely.
people who are all being protected with this.
Oh, absolutely. It goes deeper than that, Joy. You're right on the right track. First of all, we've heard of Bannon has been involved with Epstein. We heard Elon Musk. We heard Peter Thiel. All of these people are close to Trump. But the other thing that you need to understand what Trump is doing with these billionaires, he's learned from Putin and Kirill Dmitriev and Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. They've trained him to use these billionaires to make his own set of oligarchs.
Yeah.
So now he's basically doing what Putin did in Russia. He's doing here. He's forcing them, making them bend the knee. And these are all billionaires that control communications, news stations, internet, AI, all of these technologies that controls information. and that's part of a dictatorship. And that what he also is doing, which we could talk at a different time. I know you have to go. Is he takes them along with him. What made Putin very powerful is he took all of these oligarchs, he spread them all over the country, all over the world, made them invest in all these strategical places all over the world where then Putin had pieces of. Trump is doing the same thing. When he goes on these tours to the Middle East or wherever, take a look who's following behind. It's all of these oligarchs that are going behind him, making all these deals when he goes, not only his sons. So absolutely, Joy, you're on the right track, 100% right. There's a lot more to that than just the Epstein, but it's bigger than that. We're going to expose them.
Come back anytime you want, Lev Parnas. I think we need to make you a regular here, my friend. You've
No,
got
I love you.
information. I appreciate you. Say hi to Waj for me, and thank you very much. Appreciate you, Lev Parnas. Come back again.
Love you, Joy. God bless you. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Well, there you have it, y'all. Wow. We are talking about an international crime syndicate effectively operating out of the White House, out of the American White House, and a president who is behaving like Vladimir Putin, like a dictator and like a mob boss, all rolled into one, who maybe, potentially, had a guy with compromat on him, Jeffrey Epstein, who was even advised to use the compromat, how to use it, and how to leverage it against the president of the United States. Welcome to hour 2 of the Joy Reid Show. We're well into it. It's scary, but we've got more to say. It gets worse. Just when you thought everything is bad, it gets even worse. Just when you thought that even the betrayal that we saw by Democrats couldn't get worse. It turns out that the deal that 7 Democrats and 1 independent cut to give Republicans a win for nothing and get nothing in return is even worse than you thought. Yeah. Republicans have been using one set of talking points consistently, right? And I'm going to play House Majority Leader, the guy who used to call himself David Duke without the baggage, Steve Scalise. He sums it up nicely here. This is C1.
Just remember, when the Senate votes today, they're not voting on some big, massive omnibus bill, a bill that resolves all of our differences. If you're one of these Democrats, and it only takes 5 to get this government back open, and you're struggling with this decision, do you offend your far left radical base? It's about to elect the new leader of their Democrat Party in Mondami in New York. Or do you stand up for the tens of millions of people around the country who are actually suffering? And if you vote yes today, are you giving anything up? What's in that bill? A clean continuing resolution that violates any of your principles? There's nothing. Again, that bill does not solve our differences. That bill just keeps the lights on. That bill just allows federal workers to get paid for the work that they're doing.
Well, it turns out that's not quite true. The bill that passed in the Senate with the help of those 7 Democrats and 1 independent, Angus King of Vermont, was not a clean CR. And it did have some things that should offend not just the Democratic base and Mamdani, but the MAGA base too, if they care about anything. I'm sure Mamdani won't like it, but neither should any Republican. See, let me explain to y'all. A clean CR would mean that it would exactly match the continuing resolution that the House passed to fund the government this summer. Now, that House clean CR, meaning it's just a continuing, they're not passing a budget. They're saying, here's the resolution, a budget resolution to pay for the government. That resolution that the House passed this summer cut Medicaid. It allowed the Obamacare premiums to expire. Clean would mean that you make no changes to that funding bill and just pass it as is. But that is not what those 7 people, 7 Democrats, I don't even call Fetterman a Democrat, those 7 plus 1 helped pass. Republicans actually added some things to the bill for themselves. From ABC News, the spending bill approved as part of the package the Senate advanced on Monday night to reopen the government includes a provision that would create a legal pathway for senators to sue the government if their phone records are investigated without their notice. And what's significant, per ABC, is the language in the bill that appears to be retroactive, meaning that the 8 Republican senators who had their phone records subpoenaed by special counsel Jack Smith as part of his investigation into Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election could seek hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages. Senate Majority Leader John Thune was personally responsible for adding the text to the bill, sources tell ABC News. So Republicans snuck that into the bill. According to the bill text, these senators can seek up to $500,000 in statutory damages if their phone records are subpoenaed without their knowledge. That's not normal. The language is inside one of the 3 full-year spending bills that the Senate included in its government funding package. The House is expected to approve the bill as soon as today, Wednesday. So just riddle me this. What does paying off insurrectionist senators who got investigated for helping a coup, what does that have to do with funding the government, Steve Scalise, and making sure hardworking federal workers get paid when literally the law says they have to get back pay? What does that have to do with keeping the lights on? Oh, yeah, right, nothing. So Republicans were just able to change the bill to give themselves a free pass to collect $500,000 apiece if they were part of the insurrection. Got it. Clean CR. And my question is, do Republicans in the House have a problem with this? Let's go back to our favorite tag team today, Congressman Jim McGovern and the Big Nagoos. This is C5, and they're answering that question.
Far from haranguing the chairman, I'm given the opportunity for the chairman to explain the meaningful work that he's been engaged in, and I suspect that he welcomes and relishes that. So I want to talk to you about the provision that my colleague from Pennsylvania noted earlier. And this is the provision that essentially allows specifically 8 Republican United States senators to reap upwards of a $500,000 payday with respect to the phone record notice provision that they've added into the bill. You support that provision?
I didn't have anything to do with it, didn't have any knowledge of it.
Not asking if you have knowledge of it. Do you support it?
Yeah. Do I support the bill? Yes. Do I support every single provision in the bill? No.
You don't find this provision repugnant? I think most American people are going to find this pretty repugnant.
I was surprised to see it in the bill.
You know, I remember when Republicans raged against earmarks. I mean, some of us have been around here long enough. And I mean when we had bills that had provisions that helped the specific members' constituents. And we had some Republicans that would rage against them. And what we have here is an earmark on steroids. I mean, forget about the constituents. This money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly millions of dollars, goes directly to specific Republican senators. And most Republicans are just going to say, oh, well, what can we do? We just have to move on. Trump is trying to get hundreds of millions from the Department of Justice. So now I guess we have some senators who want their cut. And my Republican friends just seem to be all okay with it. I mean, this is corrupt, and it is disgusting.
Yeah.
And at some point, I mean, people have to be willing to stand up, develop a backbone, and say, no, we're not going along with this.
Yeah, Rep. McGovern, I wish that they could see that it's disgusting, but let's just be clear. They're not just going to be good with it in the House. They're going to expand it. Let me take you back to the recent past. Let's go back to ABC News. Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley released documents earlier this year suggesting that phone records from Republican Senators Lindsey Graham, Bill Hagerty, Josh Hawley, Dan Sullivan, Tommy Tuberville, the dumbest member of the United States Senate, Ron Johnson, Cynthia Lummis, and Marsha Blackburn. You know, she's a competitor with Tuberville. On and around the day of the insurrection had been accessed by investigators as part of Jack Smith's investigation. Last month, attorneys representing Smith sent a letter to Grassley seeking to correct what they called inaccurate claims that Smith wiretapped or spied on Republican lawmakers as part of his investigation. Smith's office sought limited phone toll data from the 8 senators and a member of the House in the days surrounding the January 6th insurrection. Lindsey, you will recall, reached out to the Georgia Secretary of State, and Lindsey Graham, I should say, you'll recall, reached out to the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, asking him to help Trump steal the state. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger at the time had said that Graham reached out to him to not count mail-in ballots so that Trump could win. Here's the quote from NPR. Senator Graham implied for us to go ahead and audit the envelopes, the signature on the envelopes, and then throw out the ballots from counties that had the highest frequency of error rates on signatures. And Raffensperger said, I went ahead and I explained our laws. It's pretty clear what Senator Graham, President Trump, and Attorney Lynn Wood, they're all on the same page and they don't understand the laws of Georgia. So I wonder, when the House takes up this bill, will Speaker Johnson go back to whining about a clean CR, which he was doing all through the 50 days he had his people on vacation? Or might he instead add a provision for current and former House members too? Because I want you to recall what former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson, who served as the star witness during the January 6th hearings. I want to remind you what she said in her sworn testimony.
You mentioned Mr. Gates, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Biggs did. Mr. Jordan talked about congressional pardons, but he never asked me for one. It was more for an update on whether the White House is going to pardon members of Congress. Mr. Gomer asked for one as well. Mr. Perry asked for a pardon too. I'm sorry.
Mr. Perry, did he talk to you directly?
Yes, he did.
Did Margie Joy Reid contact you?
No, she didn't contact me about it. I heard that she had asked White House Counsel's Office for a pardon.
So I get it. This whole exercise was not just about destroying Obamacare and, holding on to the cuts to Medicaid that were used to fund the Trump tax cut for the super rich. No. It was also about protecting senators from criminal liability for joining the coup and even allowing them to get paid a fat payday from your tax dollars. Because if they sued, they'd be suing the government and getting money from you. So they want to get paid for doing the coup. Got it. Let's let Congressman McGovern have the last word on that.
Republicans are choosing to go after nutrition assistance. Trump is doing this because he is a bad person. He's a lousy president and an even worse human being. He's weaponizing hunger and trying to rip food away from more than 40 million Americans, including 16 million children, for sadistic political leverage. How dare he? How dare he exploit the pain of hungry Americans? How dare he make working folks choose between health care and food? How dare he starve poor children who go to bed hungry? These people are sick in the head. They take food away from poor folks on Friday, and then they go to church on Sunday and proclaim to be good Christians.
Joining me now is Ezra Levin, co-founder of the progressive nonprofit organization Indivisible. He's a co-author of We Are Indivisible, a blueprint for democracy after Trump, published in 2019. Ezra, welcome. There is so much. I don't even know where to begin. It seems to me that this so-called clean CR was a money grab by Republican senators, aided by 7 Democrats and an independent. Your thoughts?
Joy, unfortunately, I think it's even worse than that. I don't think it is just the Democrats who voted for this surrender in the Senate. If you look at those senators, every single one of them is either 1, retiring, or 2, not up for re-election next year. That doesn't happen by accident. We're talking to a lot of folks on Capitol Hill, and what we've learned is there were many more senators who were in favor of surrender. And whether you think Schumer orchestrated it or just, as I believe, was incapable of stopping it, didn't have the leadership skills or the respect of the caucus to lead a strategy here, doesn't matter. The result was the same, an utter capitulation to the Republicans at a time when the Democrats were finally winning, Joy. We were finally winning, and boom, surrender. So look, I've spent the last year trying to organize a unified opposition. I've been trying to convince these folks to start fighting back against the regime as they invade American cities and terrorize American communities, zip tying children, dragging them out naked from their apartment buildings. My God, we need to fight back. At this point, I'm done trying to convince them. We've got to change them. Primaries are the way to do it. That's how we demand new leadership. That's where we are.
Right. I mean, I think at minimum, Chuck Schumer, I said this on the show the other day, there are only 2 choices here. He either, as you said, is either completely he's lost control of his caucus and he can do nothing to cause them to stick to whatever his plan was, or this is what he wanted and he hid behind them like a coward, which means he really shouldn't be the leader either way. So the question then becomes, what do we do right now? Because it seems like the House, at least it gives Hakeem can lead them. He can get them to stick together and vote one way and the way he wants them to go. We learned greatly from Pelosi how to keep them together. The Senate is useless to us right now. What do we do about it?
Well, we got to demand better. And I know there's a lot of focus on those 8 who voted for surrender, but none of them are for re-election next year. So I think we got to focus on those who are. Folks like Jack Reed in Rhode Island, folks like Mark Warner in Virginia, folks like John Hickenlooper in Colorado, folks like Chris Coons in Delaware. These are all safe Senate seats. Whoever wins the primary is going to win the general election. We're going to have a Democrat in there. The question is, what kind of Democrat, Joy? Is it a Democrat that's a part of the rollover and play dead caucus? Or is it a Democrat who's part of the fight back faction? I think we ought to have fight back Democrats. That's not an ideological stance. This isn't about left or right. This isn't about your position on economic policy or healthcare policy or education policy. This is, are you a loser? Are you a winner? Are you a fighter? Are you somebody who's going to surrender? And that's something that rank and file Democrats agree on. We took a vote of our members. These are folks who were organizing the wave we saw last Tuesday. These are folks who were organizing the largest peaceful protest in American history with No Kings 2 a month ago. And we asked them, look, this shutdown's been going on for a while. Do you think the Democrats should just cut a deal to reopen the government, move on? Or do you think until they get the ACA subsidies, Democrats should hold on to their leverage? 98.67% said keep fighting. 98.67%. This is not some marginal lefty grassrootsy position. This is anybody with a brain paying attention saying, why the hell would Democrats give up their leverage now? And as frustrating as it is to see the Democrats cave now, the one silver lining here is the capitulation was so complete, was so embarrassing that I think it might have convinced enough people that now's the time for building a new Democratic Party through the primaries.
Yeah, I mean, and I say it all the time, the power is in the primary. And look, the reality is I spoke with a member, a United States Senator off the record, who was saying that they were getting people coming up to them in the grocery store saying, I myself have been riffed. I'm worried about, paying my bills, but I want you to keep fighting, because at the end of the day, what the Republicans did, I've never seen an American president starve his own country, but he's saying, I will starve 42 million people until you let me raise your healthcare costs, because I want Obamacare to go away. This was it. They're like, you starve until we get to jack up your healthcare costs. And the fact that any Democrat would take that deal is shocking to me, but it means that they're of no good to us when we're dealing with an oligarchy wrapped in a corrupt kleptocracy.
Well, you said it better than I can, Joy. There are so many bads about this, I will say. And one of the bads is we have now sent a message to the regime that if you cause enough pain, we will give in.
Yeah.
What incentive does that give them? You think this is the last time they starve children? You think this is the last time they try to jack up your healthcare to enrich their donors?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but right, you said if we cause enough pain. Thank you for saying we. It was the administration that controls. It is the executive branch that controls the food stamp funding. The SNAP is not a congressional thing. So it wasn't even saying Republicans and Democrats in the Senate had no control over the SNAP funding. That was the administration. They're saying the Trump regime, will starve people. We will do it. And we want you all to let us destroy your health care.
They went to court and then they appealed the ruling when they lost two starved American children. They went to court because they wanted to pressure the Democrats at a time when Trump himself was saying, gosh, the shutdown really cost us those elections on Tuesday. We've got to figure out a way to end it. And the Democrats' response to that is, yeah, we should probably give him what he wants. Look, I'm done. I'm done, Joy. And I hope more people around the country are done. This is the way not just to build a new Democratic Party, but to stomp the fascists in the midterms, because I guarantee you, we are going to build blue wave margins. And then I guarantee you, they're going to try to steal it. So what's the quality of our leadership when they try to do that a year from now? Do we have fighters, or do we have people that want to go along? We need fighters. The time to build those fighters up is in the coming months in the primaries.
I agree with you. And the thing about it is, as you said, and this is what the Tea Party movement did. I mean, the Tea Party movement, which was MAGA before MAGA had the name MAGA, it was just the same thing. But what they did is they went after the seats they knew that would be Republican after a primary. So they didn't go, I mean, they took out any Republican who was even slightly off the Tea Party message. And at this point, to your point, Democrats can put in younger, more aggressively progressive, or even if it's just more aggressively win-centered, people who know how to win, know how to communicate, and start to build that group of senators will then elect a Senate leader who isn't like the current Senate leader, because that's the challenge, is you need a leader with cojones and with a plan.
That's exactly right. And I do think there's some concern among good rank and file Democrats who say, gosh, but the fascists are escalating. Do we really want to be fighting amongst ourselves? Don't we need to focus on just beating them? And to which I say, look, I'm not talking about going after vulnerable Democrats and trying to kick them out of office. There are plenty of blue state and blue district Democrats who are aligned with the Schumer way of thinking. And we can remove them, replace them with inspiring leaders, and then go on and stomp the fascists in the midterm. Both things are possible. And in fact, the party will have a rehabilitated brand in the same way that after Ayanna Pressley replaces a rollover and played Democrat, or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez replaces a rollover and played Democrat. This is how we revitalize the Democratic Party and become stronger. And then we go forward in the general election and we win. That's the plan. I think it's attainable, but it's only going to work if a lot of people around around the country recognize we're not playing anymore. This is the time to demand better from the party. Otherwise, we're going to get the same failed leadership.
How do you get that plan that you just talked about to also happen in the Deep South? You know, one of the things Democrats have failed to do is to even attempt to play in places like Mississippi. They've given up Florida, probably for good reason. Florida might be lost to us. But I mean, places like Mississippi and Louisiana, the Republicans win by pretty narrow margins. They're not blowouts. And yet the Democratic Party has refused to spend money there. There are going to be competitive statewide races in Mississippi, Kentucky. These things are happening in Florida too. Our friend David Jolly is running in Florida. How do you get Democrats to come up off of some of that money at the DSCC and spend money in places where there are lots, frankly, of Black people, brown people, people who are affected by the immigration rates, et cetera? They just never get asked if they care to vote.
Joy, if we're putting our faith in the DSCC to save us, I'm sorry.
We're done.
That's not where it's going. But what I will say is there are good groups out there that are organizing, not just Indivisible. Call out Black Voters Matter, who's doing serious organizing in Georgia and other states in the Deep South, really has people power, is plugging candidates, is organizing for democracy, is on the right side of the issues today. We've got to, if we want a change, we cannot just rely on organizing in the same place or with the same people. I'm from the Deep South. I'm from rural Texas. I'm from a place where the word Democrat is a bad word. When I started getting involved in politics, there was no Democratic Party to speak of where I was. It was a joke. They didn't actually contest for elections. The Indivisible leader there a few years ago decided to run for state rep, representing my hometown, and won, and then won again, and then won again. But that's because there wasn't any organizing in that place before. You need a foothold. You need people to come together and say, no, we're not just going to elect Republicans every single time and have them fail us. But so for folks who are trying to figure out where to get a foothold, I would recommend find your local organizing chapter, whatever it may be, and get to work. Because if you start contesting for elections, eventually you're going to build up and you're going to turn something like a red state that Georgia once was in to a firmly purple state where you can win 2 Democratic statewide senators. That's in reach for a lot of these states, but it's not going to be in reach if we say, oh, those are Republican land, we shouldn't organize. I think about the No Kings 2 protests. They were 2,700 protests on a single day. That wasn't in the blue city centers only. That wasn't in the blue states. That was in the smallest towns in the most red and rural and Trump country in the Deep South.
They had them in Wyoming. They had one.
They're in tiny little. There were 3 in my home county where Democrat was a bad word. So there are people out there who don't like what this regime is doing, and it's overreaching so much. Gosh, I think actually we can contest in places that we weren't able to contest in before because the mask is off. They are not lowering your prices. They are not helping you in any way. They're invading your town and terrorizing your community. That's what they have to deliver while they shut down the government in order to hide the Epstein files. Give Democrats a shot. If you have a Democrat worth a damn who's actually asking for your vote, they might be able to make some headway this term.
Well, I mean, and that's just if the Democrat is worth a shot, because the challenge that I have and the fear I have is that people reward Democrats or essentially punish Republicans for essentially the theft. I've been saying stop the steal. I mean, they're just literally stuffing money into their pockets in this United States House, United States Senate Republican caucus, while Donald Trump is doing the same. Billionaires are being treated as oligarchs, as Lev Parnas just said on the show. I mean, essentially, he's creating his new own little oligarchy. But let's say let's say Democrats take control of the United States Senate and they behave this way. As a majority, they still behave in this, we don't think this is anything other than normal politics manner. They still do business as usual. Then we've gotten nowhere. I mean, it really does matter. So do you think this is the time? And I've been really flirting with this idea of going into the Working Families Party, because the Working Families Party works alongside Democrats, but they can actually produce a better kind of Democrat, because you can only get my vote at this point in New York if you get their endorsement and you're a Democrat. You know what I mean? I want a Democrat that's endorsed by the Working Families Party. Should we start thinking about doing those kinds of outside the Democratic establishment connections?
Oh, I'm a huge fan of the Working Families Party. I think Maurice Mitchell is a generational political talent and a real leader who's been leading that party. And they've made incredible gains. Most recently, they're one of the key backers of Mamdani in New York, who didn't just win, didn't just crush the Democratic establishment, but won back young men by 40 points. 40 points. Do you remember all of that discussion about where's the Joe Rogan of left? How are we using the young men? We've got to change. We got to moderate. We got to throw trans kids under the bus. We've got to throw immigrants under the bus. That's how we're going to get young men back. And here's Mamdani coming in and winning them by 40 points with Chuck Schumer voting for Cuomo, as far as I can tell, and refusing to endorse him. So I absolutely think we need to give people something that they can be inspired by, and not just Republican light policies that is going to disappoint them. I do think, though, part of the problem that the Democrats face is the policy agenda, what they're actually promising to do. But a lot of the problem is they're widely viewed as being feckless and corrupt. I don't think they are nearly as bad as the Democrats. We're in two different worlds, but they aren't trusted by normal everyday voters. And you can't change that just by giving a good speech, writing an angry letter, or cussing more the way they figured out that they can do to try to show that they really care. You got to change leadership. You need a different set of messengers to convince normal everyday Americans that, hey, maybe this isn't the same old failed Democratic Party. Maybe I should give them another shot. But when your leader is literally the least popular political figure in the country, which is what Chuck Schumer is, how do you make that message stick? How do you win in a place like Texas or Mississippi or Alabama? You think there is a Chuck Schumer general election voter in Alabama, Mississippi, or Texas? That person doesn't exist. So we are shooting ourselves in the foot by sticking with the same failed leadership. It's not working out for governing, and it's not going to work out in the midterms.
Do you have a favorite if to replace them out of the group that are there now?
You know, I'm a fan of Chris Murphy. I'm a fan of Chris Van Hollen. I think Bernie and Warren are great, although they're progressives, and so a lot of the caucus wouldn't vote for him, I guess. But the idea that there aren't other leaders who understand the moment we're in and would be able to lead, that's ridiculous. I think what we need, though, before those leaders emerge, I think we need a cacophony. We need voices out there demanding this. Indivisible has been out calling for new leadership. Move On has been out there. PCCC has been out there. We need more folks out there saying, yeah, now's the time to make a switch. I don't want to see donations to the DSCC until there is a shift in leadership. I want to see donors coming to the Democrats saying, look, I want to support y'all, but you got to change leadership because I'm not going to throw good money after bad. And I want to see voters all around the country asking primary candidates, primaries to incumbents and primaries and open primaries, saying, are you going to vote for new leadership? Okay, tell me. And if you're not going to tell me that simple question, you don't have my vote, you don't have my attention, you don't have my money. That's how we demand the change, and we get the party we demand. So we've got to start demanding it.
Ezra Levin, it is indivisible.org is where you can find it. We're going to put that link in the description of this show so you guys can find him and find the organization doing God's work out there. Ezra Levin, thank you very much. Or doing the universe's work for those in the chat who may not be a God-fearing people, but he doing the work. Ezra, thank you very much. Come back, Alvin. So there it is. We have to change leadership. I mean, obviously, Chuck Schumer, he may be a nice enough guy, but I mean, he doesn't have the leadership skills or the public trust to do this job. And that is for, I would say, two reasons. Reason number one, he thinks that this is normal politics. He thinks that we're still living at a time when the United States Senate can operate the way it operated in the 1970s. I think that Joe Biden had this problem as well, thinking that they're living in the same United States Senate that operated in the 70s, in the 60s. They think that it's a place where you can have bipartisanship and where you can operate in a normal political manner. And because they think that, because they do not understand that the people on the other side, who they call my friends, my friend, the gentleman from wherever, name the state, that's a Republican, they think that person is operating like a normal Republican. They're not. At this point, the Republican Party is gone. It is nothing more than a cult and the high priests of a cult. They don't operate even at their own behest. They don't have their own ideas. They don't have their own politics. They just do whatever Trump wants. They are a Duma at this point. They're operating like the Russian Duma. So the first problem is thinking the Senate is normal and that the people on the other side are your friends and not the high priests of a cult who will only do what Donald Trump says and nothing more. That's true in the House. It's true in the Senate. Because Schumer does not understand that, he cannot lead. That's reason number one. Number two, they think that we have an American president. We don't. Donald Trump does not believe in anything about the American system. He doesn't believe in the Constitution. He doesn't believe he should be beholden to the rule of law. He doesn't believe in any of it. Donald Trump is angry that he has not received and never received the love he thinks he deserves from the United States. He thinks that America should be worshiping Donald Trump and should have always been worshiping Donald Trump. He is a tacky, needy, weird, long-tied, poor taste wannabe king. He really believes that he ought to be the king of the United States. He doesn't believe in the American system. And so thinking that you're dealing with Donald Trump as a normal president is problem number 2 for Chuck Schumer. You're not dealing with a normal president. You might as well be dealing with Satan, the devil. He believes that he can remake the United States into his personal kingdom because the people he admires that are leading other countries are people like Vladimir Putin and Viktor Orban, who he just feted in the White House. He thinks those people are strong. He really admires Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un of North Korea, Xi Jinping of China. Those are the people he admires. He admires El Salvador's president. He admires, people in the past like Duterte of the Philippines. Like, this is who he admires. He admires strongman dictators because he loves the fact that you remember when he said of Xi Jinping, he loves the fact that when he speaks, his cabinet stands up at attention and salutes. That's what he wants. Like, he actually wants to be treated like a dictator. He wants to be a dictator. So therefore, doesn't believe in the American system. He doesn't believe in the American presidency. It has too many limits. So that's problem number 2. And then problem number 3 is that Chuck Schumer actually doesn't have a plan. Chuck Schumer doesn't have an actual governing plan. He's just kind of tooling along, waiting for the world to change. You don't go into a shutdown that is going to cause real harm and pain for tens of millions of people. And you know what a shutdown will do because Donald Trump has presided over the most shutdowns of any president in history during his first term. So he's a shutdown government kind of guy. Republicans have shut the government down before. So you knew what a shutdown means. It means people don't get their paychecks, including your own staff. You knew that it's going to mean suffering. You didn't have a plan, Chuck? You didn't think maybe you should plan ahead for, number one, what the ending is? If anybody ever used to watch the show Lost, remember the show Lost? Anybody old enough to remember that? The problem with Lost is you can tell that when those writers wrote Lost, they didn't seem to know how that show was going to end. And so they went on from season to season. I feel the same way about Game of Thrones. You're doing this show that's actually really entertaining, and you're building this really complex narrative. But you yourself, as a writer, have not thought through how this thing ends. Who actually wins the Game of Thrones? Why were they on that island? That's why those shows had such unsatisfying endings. Because if you don't have a plan, your show kind of peters out in an unsatisfying way. And so what you have with Chuck Schumer is somebody who thinks the Senate is still normal, that we're in a normal time of the normal Senate, that the presidency is more or less, maybe he's a little outre, but he's normal. And he doesn't have a plan for how he's going to navigate any of this. He has no plan for any of it. So either he got taken to the cleaners by those 8 and they betrayed him utterly and didn't listen to him, or he was behind what they did. Neither of them are good. And so the reality is he cannot remain leader. He cannot. He may be a nice person. I'm not going to judge his character. He also can't read the room. This is a guy who refused to endorse Zoran Mamdani even on election day. He couldn't figure out where the train was going. One thing about politics is read the room. You've got to know where this whole thing is going. If you see the arc of history, you need to follow it. LBJ understood that, and he was a man of the United States Senate. This is a guy from Texas who used the word Negra on a regular basis, even though he did have a black woman that was one of his secretaries. And he did some pretty revolutionary things on civil rights, even though his own personal attitude. Truman was like a whole racist as a young man. I think he was like Klan adjacent. But he saw in World War II that you're going to need these black people to fight. We need more troops. And if these black men want to fight, I'm going to let them fight, and I'm going to iterate the military. He had to do a study for it. It took a while for it to do it. But Truman saw the arc of history. It's not that he was like a not racist person, but he saw the arc of history. FDR, I don't know what his views were on race. He didn't seem to be that great. He was willing to let the South do all sorts of horrible things.
Lincoln too. Lincoln
literally wanted blacks to be returned to Africa because he didn't want them living near white people, and said there would never be a time when black men are equal to white men. But he could see where this thing was going. He said the arc of history is that the country cannot survive half slave and half free. This is an untenable situation. So men of vision and good leaders can actually see where the thing is going, and they can get themselves there, and they can lead, even if it's not leading on their own ideology, but they see where it's going and they understand they need to be at the front of the parade, not the back. Schumer is always at the back of the parade. He's trying to figure out where things are going, and he doesn't seem to have a handle on even where the parade is. He doesn't even know what city it's in half the time. So I think his time has passed. He doesn't get it on Gaza. He just doesn't get it. Just like Biden, clearly, we talked about it in the last show. He just didn't get it. This genocide is happening, and he's like, oh no, Bibi's my friend. And so I think we're just facing this moment when we've got these leaders in the Democratic Party who just are not meant for the moment. They're not right for the times. They are not meant for the moment. LBJ was right for that moment. Truman was right for that moment. FDR was right for that moment. But Woodrow Wilson was a whole racist piece of hot garbage. But he, in some ways understood what was right for the moment. He did sign the income tax, which is why Republicans will never forgive the Democratic Party or him. Terrible, racist, awful person, screened Birth of a Nation in the White House. Just a hideous, horrible man. But he understood that we needed an international body that could kind of create international law. So he creates the League of Nations, which eventually becomes the UN. It's like we need to have some sort of governance of, the world can't just operate just willy-nilly. We got to have something. You knew we needed something like that. Man of his time made this, was something that didn't exist. We need to have a progressive income tax so that the wealthy can't have another Gilded Age. We need to not have a Gilded Age. So we need to have an income tax that's progressive and bring back the thing that Lincoln actually created, the income tax, which then he rescinded after the Civil War, because people were like, we don't want a tax. We left England to get away from taxation. Taxation was the thing that made, the wealthy oligarchs that started the country break off from England. So he was like, but we probably need an income tax. So this is the problem. Chuck Schumer, and there are a lot of defenders of Chuck Schumer. People I respect are defending Chuck. He is not the right person for this moment. He's just not built for it. He's not built to fight a fascist. And Donald Trump is a fascist. And at minimum, at sort of the most generous way to describe him, is an autocrat. But what we heard Lev Parnas talk about tonight is that he's essentially running a syndicate, a crime syndicate that is taking American tax dollars out of your pocket and giving it to billionaires who are already billionaires and in some cases trillionaires. They're taking your money and giving it to Elon Musk. He has a lot of government contracts. He's now a trillionaire, or about to be a trillionaire, and he's still going to get your tax money. Why? Why are these men who are giving $300 million for Donald Trump to have a ballroom, why do they get a tax cut again? Well, why do they get, in addition to that, government contracts, which, by the way, is your money? And to give them the tax cut, and I've said it 473 times, but I will just say it for the 474th time, to give the super rich that record-busting tax cut. They took the money out of Medicaid. Medicaid paid for the tax cut. The big, beautiful bill, as they called it, which was Orwellian. They called it that because they are George Orwellian evil. They called something beautiful, which was the biggest transfer of wealth in the history of the United States. There has never been a larger or more massive wealth transfer from the poor to the rich in 249 years of history. That bill transferred $4 trillion from you to Elon, the PayPal mafia, Peter Thiel, Jeff Bezos, who just had that, big party at his house with all the celebrities at it. They got your money and they're still not done. They're getting more because they get contracts on top of it. I'm sorry, how is that not a syndicate when they're also doing everything they can to protect a pedophile ring, which is the largest and most extensive pedophile ring in the history of the world? So let's just review. Donald Trump is leading a crime syndicate in which his own family is raking in money every time he goes to another country. By the way, he's going to Spain, I think, to watch the Commanders play. They're having to reroute everything so that he can go watch again. He's so rich, that's what he's about to do with your money, because you pay for that. They're living in a new Gilded Age and you're paying for it. They made this $1.7 trillion tax cut permanent at a cost to you of $4 trillion that you will have to pay for. They took the money out of Medicaid, meaning rural hospitals and poor folks. They also then went and cut more money out of Obamacare, ended the little subsidies that you get, which was $0.3 trillion. And now they're saying we're never giving it back. You don't get the subsidy, so you can't afford health care. And if you don't like it, we will starve 42 million people to make you comply. And by the way, they're still starving them. The Trump regime has not fully funded SNAP. They're still in court in the Supreme Court, waiting for the appeals court and the Supreme Court to finish the case. They haven't restored the money. They haven't restored the money. Travel is still a hot mess. They haven't fully restored people's back pay. They haven't done any of it, even though it's literally in their purview. It's an executive branch thing. SNAP is not the legislature anymore. They already passed the money. It's Trump that's refusing to give the money. So again, he's partying with his friends, hosting lavish parties, theme parties at his estate. All the billionaires are partying. They're all living the life. They're living it up and taking the money out of Medicaid to pay for it. This is their dream, to have back the perfect capitalism they had at the beginning of the country, because the country began as an oligarchy where you had perfect, pristine capitalism, very low cost to produce, very high profits, 0 wages, no unions, 7-day-a-week work week, no ability to strike, no ability to retire, and no one had to pay for any more time. That was slavery. Perfect capitalism, perfect. And it made people extravagantly rich. And the people who were being made richer than anything that has existed until the present day went to war with the King of England so he wouldn't tax that wealth. That was how we ended up as a country, is that these people who, before the current tech billionaires, created the greatest wealth in the history of the world off of free labor. Free labor. It didn't even cost anything to feed slaves, because you just gave them the scraps off your table. That's why you have oxtail. That's why you have neck bones and chicken wings, because they just threw the wings to that, y'all made it gourmet now, but that's just the extra food off of the masses table. So you didn't have to pay to feed them, or just throw some cornmeal with half to the hogs, half to the slaves. It's perfect capitalism. 0 labor cost almost, pig feet, all that stuff Black people have made into gourmet food is because that was the chitlins, all of that, just thrown to the side crap that Black people were forced to eat, and they just made it hot because we just like that. That is capitalism. Pig's ears, all the stuff that the chat is talking about, right? And so now you had people literally were like, we're going to go to war with England so we don't have to pay taxes on this shit. We want this shit tax-free. And now, boom, America. And then they did it again in the Gilded Age, where they're like, we're making factories. And we don't want to pay these people. We want them to work 7 days a week. All right, maybe we'll give them Sundays off. Fine. Even the slaves, let them pray on Sunday that they could be good slaves, and let the little, immigrant workers with their, they don't even go to the school. We don't even want them to have school. We just go work 6 days a week. You get off Sunday off. We're not going to pay you good wages, and no unions, no labor protections, nothing. The 20th century destroyed their dreams because suddenly in 1913, you have an income tax. Now it's like we're going to take some taxes out. Then you get FDR comes along and says, no, not only are we going to keep that income tax going, we're going to take some of that money and let people retire. We're going to create Social Security. The fight against Social Security was so serious, a bunch of billionaires at the time, their version of billionaires, plotted to overthrow FDR and replace him with an American Führer. That happened. The allegation is that one of Bush's kin was involved in that, George Bush's kin. They were going to overthrow FDR because he had the nerve to have federally funded employment and Social Security. And they were so angry about it. And they stopped him from also doing universal health care, because they were going to originally also do universal health care. That they were like the FDA, the Doctors Association, the medical, so they were like the AMA. They were like, hell no. The doctors got together and said, hell no, we're not giving these people free healthcare. No, we're not giving people subsidized healthcare. No, they couldn't get it. And then it took another several, decades to finally get a version of federalized healthcare for old people and poor people, Medicare and Medicaid. Those are part of Medicare is part of the Social Security Act. It's just an extension of Social Security that they finally got the healthcare part. And they couldn't even get it for the poor in there because the rich people were like, hell no again. So they had to make it different. They made it block grants to states Medicaid. That's the only difference. And then it took another several decades to fix that with Obamacare. You see what I'm saying to you? We have been engaged in a 249-year fight against oligarchs. And to fight that, you need revolutionary thinking. You need people who are willing to understand what they're fighting. In FDR's age, he was fighting literal Nazis overseas and at home. He was fighting Nazis who were willing to replace him with a Führer, people who were in the 1920s going to Madison Square Garden and Sig Heiling, for real, for real. So we're facing a crisis of a oligarchy, a noxious, vicious oligarchy that is also on top of it racist and engaging in ethnic cleansing. And who do you think they think is going to replace those brown workers that they're deporting? If you thought the blacks, ding, ding, they're like, we want back what we had before. Thank you very much, Citizen Morgan, for the $5 tip and for the compliments on the civics history lesson. This is the stuff I try to explain. I really wish Democrats would have just said, you're trying to impoverish people and starve Americans to try to force them to give up their health care, because that's all that this whole exercise has been about. And for Chuck Schumer and those 8 people to throw us under the bus when we know for damn sure that that Republicans are never going to allow a vote to extend those subsidies. And whatever sad thing comes out of this supposed vote in December is going to be less than what we have now. They're going to force them to give in and give away some things in order to even get that. And whatever comes out of that December vote is going to be less than what y'all have now. And I'm very sad about that. It is not a good thing. I think we need a moment of joy, Jason. Let's go ahead and get a moment of joy, because it's a sad, sad thing. But I do hope, before I get to the moment of joy, that we have to understand that we are fighting something that has not existed in the United States really since the 1930s. I mean, we're fighting a full-on fascist coup that only started on January 6, 2021, but is completing itself now very much 1930s Germany style, right? Hitler did this coup, the beer hall putsch. He ends up in jail. He comes out, then he becomes chancellor. He gets elected, right? I mean, all of this stuff just happens again and again and again. Human history is like a wheel. It just keeps turning and repeating and repeating and repeating. And we're like Dieter the repeater. We just keep repeating the same things. And so we know how it came out in the 1930s. We ended up in a world war. Donald Trump is now bombing fishermen, threatening to do an Iraq on Venezuela. At a certain point, this all explodes. And you'll pay for that too, because if there's a war against Venezuela, you will pay for that. If they invade Panama to steal the canal, you will pay for that. If they invade Greenland to take their rare earth, you will pay for that. They're now saying they're going to protect Christians by going after Nigeria. Okay, you want to have a war in Africa too? They're welcoming the new Syrian president. Hopefully he doesn't go back to jihad, which is what he was doing before. And what's so interesting is that the thing that they keep name checking is communism. And that is also a clear fascist thing. When you're a fascist, you call everything that isn't fascism communism. And it's a tell. Just listen to when they keep calling people communists. Mike Johnson does it. Donald Trump does it. All these Republicans go out and they call people like Zoran Mamdani communists. They're not communists. Communism and socialism are two different things. I really wish a journalist would say, what is a communist? And they say that, but they don't. But calling people communists, that is another sign. You have to see what you're seeing and accept. Me, my argument against a Chuck Schumer or a Dick Durbin or any of these guys, thank God Dick Durbin's retiring, they don't understand any of this. They think that this is like the 90s and it's just Clinton versus Newt Gingrich and this is just politics. Even that wasn't normal. This isn't that. This is not politics. They're not learning. This is the 30s, not the 90s. Thank you, HW Duncan 3. I appreciate the $10 tip. Thank you. This is the 30s, not the 90s, Chuck. And so if you can't see that and you can't get that, you can't lead the party. You can't lead the party. It's just not your time. You're not a man of this time. This isn't the right time for you, and it isn't the right party for you. It isn't right. It can't end. Jeffries, you know what? Let me play really quick. We have a clip of Jeffries, and you guys can tell me if you think that Jeffries is, because I think he's picking up, and I think he feels the heat at the back of his neck. He can feel the horses of change. Here's C10. Let's play C10. This is
interesting that my colleague from Texas wanted to sit there and lecture both Catherine Clark and I, but couldn't see fit to ask us a single question, engage in a debate. Where y'all been, bro? You've been out for 7 weeks. You don't have the time to have a back and forth? We hear you rant for a few minutes, basically threaten to repeal the Affordable Care Act and then don't want to defend that position? You should feel free to defend that position. You've done it 70 times. And if you think that's on the right side of the American people, then fine. That's your plan. Repeal and displace tens of millions of people. That's the Republican plan. And what I don't understand is why my colleague cut and run. I'm sitting right here. Catherine Clark is right here. Hopefully, Madam Chair, we can have a back and forth as opposed to just being lectured to by our Republican colleagues.
I think Hakeem Jeffries has potential. There are a lot of people who get mad at him all the time. Thank you, Brands Miller, 121278 for the $2 tip. But I think he has potential. I think he needs to let go of AIPAC. I think he needs to make a clean break. You know, endorsing Mamdani was a good sign that he is teachable, that he actually can. I think, you know, he's younger, obviously, his generation's younger. I think he has potential. I want to see more. I want to see more distance. I want to see more pushing away. You know, he's a good communicator, which is helpful. We'll see. But even he has got to, everyone's got to show and prove at this point. I don't think anybody automatically gets support. I think it's really a matter of who is willing to fight for the people, who is willing to fight hard, and who is willing to fight Trump like you're fighting the devil. I need to see you fight like you are an exorcist with that cross in your hand saying the power of Christ compels you. I want to see some power of Christ compels you leadership. You need to fight like you're doing an exorcism of the United States.
Get thee behind me, Satan.
Get thee behind me, Satan. It has to be like an exorcism. Okay? Exorcism. Because that's, we have somebody called it it's like a virus that has taken the United States. But a lot of people are waking up, even people, again, who voted for Trump because of the money thing. The main thing is the money thing. Is they voted for Trump because they thought he was going to put money in their pockets. There are some of them who are cult members, but not all of them. But the ones who were not cult members, who just thought he was giving them some coins in their pocket, they're the ones who are going, oh crap, I'm in trouble too. And so and look, it is not even a matter of the Democratic Party anymore. I'm not even interested in them anymore. We just have to fight this fascism. We have to fight this fascism. We have to fight it like it's an actual problem. Now we're going to play our moment of joy. Our moment of joy comes from our former and truly American president. He's an American president, former President Barack Obama, who actually believes in the Constitution, believes in the system, maybe even too much, right? Maybe he wasn't even too nice, maybe believes in it too much. But while Donald Trump was yapping about himself at a Veterans Day event yesterday, which I refused to play, he was actually surprising veterans on an honor flight on a U.S. airline. This is such feel-good video. We had to make it our moment of joy. Jason's the one who found this one for me today. Jason, play D1, please.
This honor flight is to honor all the veterans of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. It's all free for them. We show them all their monuments and explain what their monuments are about. We just try to treat them with dignity that some of them didn't get when they came home from the war.
Hello, everybody. What? As we approach Veterans Day, I wanted to stop by and just say thank you for your extraordinary service to you, your family. The sacrifices that all of you made to protect our country is something that will always be honored. And we are very grateful, and we also happen to welcome you with a 70-degree day in D.C., which doesn't always happen around here.
That's the first time I've seen a president, former or current, greet an honor flight, and that is absolutely amazing. A commander-in-chief, a leader who's going to show up and tell you that your service was worth something. I think that's the important part, so I think it was a great thing that happened.
Last time I got to see a president, it was Gerald Ford. How about that?
It was a joy in my heart today to see all these people. It's good. We still got people in our country, and that's good.
I had tears in my eyes. I just
couldn't believe that there was that many people around that remembered us and was there to greet us, and it was just unbelievable.
Well, it means a lot because back then you got off the plane there and you had no welcome and people were almost booing you.
I'm real happy that now with current troops that come back from deployments, they get welcomed back really nice because that's what should happen. So it's being recreated in this flight and it makes you feel good.
I haven't flown for 50 years. I was in the military from 72 to 76. Our country puts these things up, these memorials, honoring the men and women that served. You couldn't ask for something greater.
This has been going on over 20 years, and it started out very small, and now a lot of states have their own hubs, and they raise their own money and get there, and they set up the whole flights. They set up where they're going to go, the buses, the flights. Flight like today from Madison, Wisconsin will come in the morning and leave in the afternoon, and we'll get them around to every monument we can within reasonable time. Every city in this country has got veterans in it, I guarantee it. Go up and say thank you, and just tell them how much you appreciate them.
How do you not love that? You can't have a full human heart and not love that. Happy Veterans Day, belated to everybody who served. The generation that fought fascism cannot have to live to see us fall to fascism anyway. Quick programming note, tomorrow night we're going to be airing an interview on this channel with a young woman from the African nation of Burundi who was admitted to Harvard last year, only to have the Trump regime, it's a shorty, to have the Trump regime ban visas from her country and put a stop to her dreams. It's showing the real life consequences for international students, but also to American universities. So we're losing out on some great students. That's going to be a short that's going to air tomorrow night, 6 p.m. on the Joy Reid Show channel. Do tune in. That's it for now. Thank you all for tuning in. Please hit like, subscribe, and share this episode. If you're in the merch store, don't forget to hashtag Wearing Joy and Readers. We love y'all. Thank you to our team TJS people and everybody who's in the chat. Y'all were on fire tonight. Fire, fire, fire. See y'all on the next The Joy Reid Show. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.